And we're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rochester City Council's Finance Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I would ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Councilmember Evans.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Here.
President Scott.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order of business on the agenda is introductory number 34, a resolution approving a reappointment to the Rochester Public Library Board of Trustees. Questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Just a comment, which our libraries are a fabulous resource in our community, and move it.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Harris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 35 is appropriating firefighters insurance funds. I'll entertain any questions or comments on introductory number 35.
Move it.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
The clerk will
Introductory
enter the
number
affirmative-
36.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
That's okay. The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 36 is adopting the budget equity program. I'll entertain questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 36.
Move
If
it.
it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it.
The clerk will
Thank you.
enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
And carrying on from introductory number 36 to number 37, also involving the local law amending the city charter with respect to the budget equity program. Introductory number 37, I'll entertain questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 37.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to take an opportunity, if you allow, sir.
Yes.
I just want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of many individuals. We set out on the racial equity and leadership program a few years ago. And I want to acknowledge some folks, basically the whole team, racial equity team that was put together, more specifically Doucette and Dr. Lomax Campbell, Letitia Doucette and Dr. Lomax Campbell, who really put a lot of work into this, as well as to our human resources, Tassie Demps, put a lot of work into this as well, and also to Dr. Rose as well. Just a lot of individuals put a lot of work into this, and I think this is something that's going to rear a lot of positive benefits for our city, our departments, when it comes around racial equity and looking at how we're drafting our budget and looking at all departments with a racial equity lens. So I just wanted to commend those individuals and the mayor for putting us on the path of starting the real initiative in the city of Rochester.
Thank you. And Mr. Vice President, I also want to, I'm sure I speak for all the members of council where I say thank you to you as well, because this has been something that you have stuck with since your beginning time on council. So I thank you for your leadership as well in this effort with the real initiative.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns around introductory number 37?
Move it.
Second.
Moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 38 is authorizing agreement with the city school district for joint use and maintenance of facilities. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved. Is it second?
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. The ayes.
Councilmember Harris, you would have to abstain from this
Oh.
one.
So
Your
introductory
mic's not
number.
on.
If you could put me on record for abstention, I'm sorry about that. Thank you
Yes.
for checking.
So it does pass with the exception of Councilmember Harris, who will abstain.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 401 into the record with Councilmember Harris abstaining.
Introductory number 39 is a resolution appointing a marriage officer. I'll take questions, comments, or concerns. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Been waiting all day for that one, haven't you?
I have been.
It was.
Move it.
It's been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. And that, Madam Clerk?
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Yep, and I would just note that we have folks now in the city council and city clerk's office that can perform marriage ceremonies, and as backup, the Right Reverend Willie J. Lightfoot, just so people know, can also perform weddings as well, in addition to our clerk and Miss Bridget Birch White. So if anybody needs that.
Only if there's a catastrophe.
Right.
We'll keep that in mind.
Introductory number 68 is authorizing an intermunicipal agreement and amending the 2021 budget for the receipt and use of hotel motel tax receipts. Any questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 68?
Move it.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk?
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 69 is a resolution for the purpose of a home rule message regarding state legislation in relation to the establishment of a housing park in Rochester City Court. Questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 69?
Hooray. Move
I
it.
do have a question, Councilmember.
Okay, yep. Councilmember Gruber?
Thanks. I'm just wondering what the assumed, I know there's a lot of questions to be asked about this still, and I won't get into specifics, but I'm wondering about the presumed timeline of something like this, going from council to having to pass in the legislature to coming back to us. Anyone have any sense of that?
I can
I
say
can tell
that
you
based
that
on,
the first barrier is going to be getting it approved at the state level.
Yep.
So, I mean, we can look at timelines after that, but who knows how long it's going to sit at the state.
Yeah, and this is the first.
Lost you, Malik.
Order for you were to get was
Chairman Evans,
Can you hear me?
we've lost you.
now?
You got robot voice.
Can you hear me?
No. So we've got a motion on the floor, and we'll keep moving as we wait for Chairman Evans to get back with us. But was there all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And I say aye.
I'm sorry, I must have hit mute.
We just voted on that one, so the
Okay.
clerk can record it.
Are you
Yes,
in favor?
And I
Councilmember?
vote
Yes.
aye. I'm sorry. I must have hit the mute button and didn't realize it.
Okay, the clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Perfect. Introductory number 70 is a resolution approving appointments to the Board of Ethics. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I think this one has a amendment.
It has an amendment.
Yes, it does.
Oh, the date of the
Could I
term that's
get-
being completed.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
could
a-
I Could I get a motion to amend?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor of
The
the
It was
amendment,
amendment?
hold on for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mayor.
We lost another one?
Did we lose the mayor?
Just for a point of clarity, the amendment, Councilmember Evans, was the amendment will correct the heading to make the word appointment singular.
Right.
That was the amendment.
So that is the amendment. We will vote on the amendment. It has been moved and seconded. So all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
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 Aye. Now we will vote on the introductory number 7D, the resolution approving the appointment to the Board of Ethics. Do I have a motion?
You're gone again, Chairman Evans. Okay. All right, we got to vote on the amendment.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we just need a vote on the actual legislation, introductory number 70.
Move it.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record for both the amendment and the as amended item.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last piece of business to come before the Finance Committee is introductory number 71, authorizing and mandatory agreements for information technology contract services. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
The
Any
clerk will enter.
abstentions? All right, the ayes have it, Madam Clerk.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
if there's not any more business to come before the Finance Committee, we stand adjourned.
Thank you all. At this time, I call the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee to order, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Councilmember Lupian. Councilmember Lupian, I saw her.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, now. Councilmember Melendez,
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
President Scott.
Here.
Thank you.
Introductory number 40, authorizing the sale of real estate. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Melendez, seconded by Council Vice President Lightfoot. And now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 41, authorizing a lease agreement with Arbor at the Port, LLC. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by President Scott, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Melendez. All right. And so at this time, we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 42, authorizing the sale of Genesee Street properties to the Center for Teen Empowerment. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Councilmember Patterson, I have a comment. I'd just like to
Absolutely,
say,
Councilmember Harris.
I'd like to say that I'm very excited about this project. This is going to transform that area, Genesee and Arnett Boulevard, and it's going to be transformative for our young people of our community. So I'm looking forward to this.
Very cool. My only question is, what are they going to do with the old curtain shop? But hey, that ain't today. So
I
we
have a
need,
question.
yes, Councilmember Lupian.
So in terms of the it came back in the question and answer that there's 3 properties that they're buying, but they're not contiguous. There's actually 2 other properties that they're hoping to buy. And I'm wondering, has eminent domain been considered?
No, not as of yet. So they have the 2 properties that are contiguous. That's where the development's going to happen. They have a parcel that's 1 parcel away is the 3rd parcel. They're going to attempt to swap that with the owner of the parcel that's between those, so that they can provide parking and things of that nature. You know, we have a reverter clause in there so that because they don't really have an interest in that separated parcel, it's really for the purpose and intent of negotiating a sale and a transfer and a swap of that one that is adjoining. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll help them facilitate that best we can.
Okay, so it's not like the project would be bigger necessarily. Okay.
The project is not dependent on it.
And if, and this is probably not something you can answer right now, but if the swap isn't successful, is there any interest in the city being able to acquire that property so that it can be contiguous?
I mean, there could be. There's you know, we have a $82,000 demo bill on that corner lot, 116 Arnett. The same owner owns that parcel that's, you know, we're talking about. I'm sure there's going to be an interest in us pursuing whether they develop that area or else they're not interested in developing it and we pursue it.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question for law. As a general rule, do we pursue eminent domain with the purpose of taking someone else's land and giving it to another private party?
No, that would not be eligible for eminent domain. You can't swap private uses. We could condemn property for public use, but you can't condemn property to take it away from one private owner and give it to another private owner for a better purpose or a worse purpose or whatever. But you really can't apply the eminent domain laws simply to take title and give it for another private use.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 42?
Understand in the sense of the private sale, but
Member Lupian, can you speak up, please?
yeah, I don't know what's going on with my microphone. I understand for a private owner, but for nonprofits, does that count, or could that be considered public?
That would count as well. That's private ownership. You distinguish on that level between private ownership, which is public or not for profit, and governmental use. So we could only use condemnation for governmental public purposes, not for private purposes.
Thanks.
Any other questions on introductory number 42? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Moved.
Moved by Councilmember Melendez and seconded by Council Vice President Lightfoot. And now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 43, authorizing the acquisition of 236 University Avenue, building demolition and budget amendment for the School 58 campus expansion project. Just a quick comment. Man, bought a lot of chicken out of that place, as both a Kentucky Fried Chicken and as a Chinese restaurant. I'm sure the kids miss the Chinese restaurant. It's been closed for quite some time, but I'm sure that this land will be put to good use as green space for the school. Questions, comments, or concerns on the item? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by President Scott, seconded by Councilmember Melendez. And now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the item, please say nay. The item passed.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 44, amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 84 South Union Street. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. So we've had some questions and some issues around this particular rezoning. And I have asked the owner of the property and the developer of the property to come in. And that is Ms. Dawn Williams Fuller. Ms. Fuller, if you're willing to, I'd like you to make a brief presentation about your ownership of the property and what your future plans are. After that, we will entertain questions. Ms. Fuller, if you're willing, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. President Scott, Mr. Vice President, council members, Mayor Warren. I'm Dawn Williams Fuller, owner of 86 and 84 South Union Street. I'd like to thank Council for inviting us to share our plans for the redevelopment. I'd like to thank Council Member Patterson for reaching out to us this week. I am joined by Doug Nicey, our development consultant. I would ask Doug to introduce himself as well.
Evening, everyone. Doug Nicey with Arrival Partners. Nice to see you all virtually.
Yes. So I'd just like to test. Do I have 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 minutes? Just want to understand what time we have.
Well, brevity is always a goal, but clarity is the main goal. So just clear and direct, and I'm sure we will have some questions afterwards, but we'll go.
Okay. One more question I do have to ask. We do have slides. Do you want us to share those, or do we just talk to you today?
I think it'd probably be best if you just talk to us for now, and if we need the slides, we can go to the slides.
Okay, absolutely. So I'll talk about our company, our goals and our objectives, and then I will pass it to Doug to talk about the hotel development. So our company, Ambassador Union Street LLC, is a small family business. We are 4 siblings who invest and do business together. This is how we bootstrap. We acquired the Ambassador in 2010, and we have done business and served the community on South Union Street for the past 10 years. The Ambassador celebrates its 100th anniversary in 2023. It's a beautiful old building, but it is nearing its end of life. And so our company has been working for the past couple of years on a long-term strategy to reinvest in the Ambassador and the neighborhood. And this would be a reinvestment for another 100 years. So as a result of many creative studies and analyses, we propose to rehabilitate and renovate the Ambassador to be an upscale hotel. And like I said, I'll have Doug talk some more about that. It would be 90 rooms. With regards to this redevelopment and the community benefit and impact, this project and reinvestment is a very important long-term commitment for our company. It will provide more jobs for our community. This is permanent as well as construction jobs. It provides for the adaptive reuse of the building that is nearing end of life. It supports the inner loop transformation that has been happening over the past 5 years. When we got to Union Street in 2010, if you compare what it looks like today with what it looked like then, you will see that a wonderful transformation has happened thanks to the city of Rochester in our neighborhood. And with this reinvestment in the Ambassador, we are taking this transformation further. The city's goal is to have a neighborhood where we live, work, and play. And we see this reinvestment as supporting that transformation. Most importantly, this investment supports the city's Rochester 2034 comprehensive plan and its place-making goals. I'd like to share with you, just to let you know that we've done a lot of due diligence. And I'll talk about the due diligence that we've done around the hotel, as well as the due diligence that we did several years earlier with regards to multifamily. So with regards to the hotel, we started with market research interviews and workshops here in Rochester. We did them blind. From there, we went to the comprehensive market study, operational pro forma, investment analysis. This was all done by Hospitality Marketers International. From there, Arrival Partners and Doug did the concept planning, the development consulting, project costing. We had help from the Pike Company with the construction estimate. With regards to the most recent submission for the zoning amendment, we've had Marathon Engineering, Hanlon Architects, doing a lot of work around that package, the site plan, the elevations, the renderings, and all the other deliverables that are needed for the zoning amendment submission. As I said before, not just the due diligence on the hotel. In 2018 and 2019, we worked with Hanlon Architects on multiple scenarios for a multi-family residential project. And we were very passionate about this. We went at this several times with many different scenarios. And each time it came back that the project was not viable. So with the existing building, with our site that is very irregular. If you look at our site on any map, you'll see it's very irregular. Given our business model and scale of operations, the competition and market pricing, it was not feasible. We tried multiple times and multifamily just was not feasible. I wanna talk a little bit also about resident engagement and neighborhood engagement. So our first priority has been communicating with our current residents and providing them with a project scope and schedule and ensuring and committing to them that no leases will be impacted. We are actively managing all the lease agreements. I see every lease agreement so that they expire naturally prior to the start of the on-site project. October 27th last year was when we sent out letters to all of our residents. Since then, we've had a couple of new residents, but we are keeping every resident aware of the project and where we are. We will continue to be fully transparent with all new residents. And so again, so that all leases can expire naturally prior to the start of the on-site project. Before handing over to Doug, I'd like to talk a little bit about the market, our market. So we are market rate. We're not affordable housing. We're market rate apartments. And our residents tend to be younger. And so their lives are changing very quickly. They're moving, they're getting married, they're doing lots of different things as young people do. So our leases turn over very frequently. And this is neither good nor bad. It's just the nature of our business. So with us being market rate, with our frequent turnover, and with all of the wonderful multifamily that is going in on Union Street, probably 500, and you know these numbers more than I do. I would say anywhere from 500 to 700 new units going in on that street and immediately around it. We do not, there should be very little impact from our project on housing. With regards to neighborhood engagement, we have been implementing an action plan to engage our neighbors and the community. This is something we will continue to do even after the zoning amendment occurs. We've held meetings with our neighbors. So the immediate neighbors on our block, Peter Morse, Steve Venturino, and Andrew Tickle. We've also held meetings with the Strong Museum. The feedback expressed from all of these meetings was positive. We appreciate the submitted letter of support from our neighbor, Peter Morse. He owns 3 of the townhomes adjacent to us. Last September, we engaged Council Member Lupian. She was one of our first engagements. We are in her district, and so we met with her to share the project and seek her input. We have also engaged James Stamps, administrator for the Southwest Neighborhood Service Center, and Nancy Johns Price, administrator for the Southeast NSC. We have engaged Wadsworth Square and C4, but the way we left it last year, we weren't able to meet because of a variety of different reasons, including illness. So we left it that we would come back this year and share more with them this year. So let's see. I'm gonna pass it to Doug. If you could talk a little bit.
Hang on 1 second, just before we go to Doug. At this time, are there any council members or comment?
Yeah, I can comment.
Councilmember Lupien, please.
Yeah, so I definitely enjoyed meeting with you, Don, and hearing about the project. You know, as I expressed, I'm always sad to see residential housing go. But as I've talked with people, you know, around the area, there is a level of excitement for the project, and I think it would be good for the neighborhood. The only concerns, and I mentioned this to you, are around the actual zoning change, bringing it from R3 to the Center City District. That would allow a lot of things by right, whereas maybe with other zoning, it would be there would be other processes for there to be public input before, you know, say for some reason, you know, the hotel doesn't work out and it gets sold, and another you know, business comes in, that the surrounding neighbors wouldn't necessarily get a say in what might go there, whereas in another zoning they might. So that was my only concern, that during the engagement that folks maybe didn't understand the zoning change. And so I was just wondering if you could speak to that, if there was any engagement around the zoning change itself and what it might mean.
I can speak to that when Dawn. I can speak to that unless there are other comments. When I get to speak, I can address the zoning if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
Okay. So regarding the zoning, so yes, the use that we're looking for is a hotel use. We're currently in the R3 zoning, and hotel use is not a permitted use in that zoning district. We are across the street on Union Street from the downtown district, CCDB base district. And we recognize that under the Rochester 2034 comprehensive plan, the plan in 2022, perhaps 2023, is to rezone this site and all of the east side of Union Street to become effectively CCD. So our understanding is it's coming, and our interest is to expedite the rezoning of this particular site so that we can move forward with a project from a hotel basis. It's all tied just from a hotel demand standpoint. We recognize that the gravity of demand is really moving in this direction, which is terrific, with the Strong Museum and all the activity that's taking place just across the street as far as the hotel proposal for the Hampton Inn and the other projects. So we see from a purely demand perspective that a hotel of this size can be tremendously successful in this evolving neighborhood. But we also recognize that we need to go through with this zoning change to do it. And I believe we've been more than transparent with everyone regarding that, because we're unable to seek a variance under R3 to allow hotel use. We go through the zoning process. As a part of that rezoning process was the application to the city, which we did just before Thanksgiving of last year. And there are some specific criteria that the Plan Commission reviews, effectively that the hotel use in its location is appropriate, the scale of the building is appropriate, the scale of the uses is appropriate. And we've made efforts to speak, initially to our immediate neighbors and the tenants, and then the larger community as well. And we're thankful for getting the unanimous support of the Plan Commission in support of the rezoning.
Let me add a couple things to that too. So the other thing, because as Councilmember Lupian referenced, what are the other options for zoning district? Well, there really aren't any, right? So you can't be R. It can't be R because that's prohibited, hotels. Across the street is Center City District. So if you did any other district like C2, C3, now you're spot zoning. That would not make sense, right? So when we have a project before us, we're always looking at what is the pieces of the puzzle. How do we best construct the path forward in the most sensible way? And this is the clearest path, the most sensible path, and it aligns with the 2034 plan.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, my main concern was, do the neighbors that were engaged understand the zoning change? Because, when I was given the presentation, it was very project focused, as it should have been, but I didn't understand what it would mean changing from R3 to CCD until a few days ago. And I'm just wondering if neighbors were really explaining the difference.
Yes, I'd say they were. We spoke with the immediate neighbors again, Andrew, Steve, Peter, and the timing was such that we also sent to them the rezoning application, so they saw the criteria for the rezoning and offered, if they wanted to join the rezoning as they were contiguous to our site, that they're more than welcome to do so, but at the same time that we wouldn't be waiting for them to join the submittal, and that we would submit either way, which is what we did. And I've had subsequent calls with a couple of them regarding their interest on the rezoning side. They all understand that under Rochester 2034, it's coming. It's coming in a matter of a couple of years. And they may choose to move forward with that. But I'd like to say, and I'll be disappointed if I found the immediate neighbors weren't clearly conveyed the rezoning criteria and process.
Well, I guess there's a difference in understanding that zoning is in the 2034 plan, right? And
Hard to hear, Mary.
I don't know what's going on.
Just need to lean forward.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that, it's in the 2034 plan and the placemaking plan, but that's, kind of a draft, and that there will be extensive community input when we're doing the zoning rewrite. So I know at that point, the neighbors would be explained what the change to CCD would mean. And so I guess I'm just not really getting from your answer if the neighbors understand that what's involved with CCD itself.
So, it's part of the process. Everybody within 600 feet is getting a notification of what is before them. So the zoning changes reference. Do we quote, the multiple pages of the zoning code that apply? No, but they're advised that this is a zoning district change, that you have a right to weigh in on your opinion, whether you support or don't support it. So, I mean, we can lead people to seek further clarity, but we can't, you can't send out the zoning code, which is, 4 inches thick every time we have a zoning project. The Planning Commission and everybody that we go through a process, they're notified, they can inquire, they can call staff, they can send comments. And in this case, 2 people chose to do that. One supported it, one did not.
Of the people that you directly talked to, Dawn, was that part of the presentation of kind of the specifics of CCD?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because from the get-go, we knew that there had to be a zoning change. So we have used a consistent message and consistent presentation with everyone. It's the same presentation that we have shared with the city, that we shared with the Strong Museum, that we shared with our immediate neighbors. It's the same, when we meet with anyone, it's the same deck. We don't deviate, and we make it very clear that this requires a zoning change. We pull out the maps. There's a map that shows the different colors of what is zoned here and what is zoned there. So we have been very transparent and very diligent in explaining it. As to whether people understand everything of what the zoning code means, then I cannot speak for that. But we have done our part in putting it out there very transparently that this would be a zoning change.
Yes, and you did. I think, I, not knowing zoning, didn't understand the implications of going to Center City District. And so, I'm trying to, I sent you an email with some folks to connect with that were asking me about the project that hadn't seen the presentation yet. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, I don't think that there's an issue, but my concern is just making sure that folks
Thank you. Take care.
have all the information. So thank you.
Absolutely. So we will continue to talk and seek input. We see this as a positive thing, not a negative thing, because it's the same community that we are going to turn around and ask to support us. Their guests, we will ask to support us. So taking the input and feedback of the community is a good thing. So, yes.
So I just have one question. Looking at the packet here, it looks like you were only zoning or rezoning 84 and 86. Is that accurate? Just to be clear?
Yes, that is accurate.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, and at this time, unless there are any other questions, we need a motion and a second on introductory number 44. So
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Vice President Light, seconded by Councilmember Melendez. And now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passed.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 45, amending the zoning code text in relation to conformity with the comprehensive plan, public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second.
Moved.
Moved by Councilmember Melendez, seconded by
Second.
President Lightfoot. And now we vote.
You didn't call him president again.
No, you did.
I'm sorry, President Lightfoot. President Scott. Long day. It's a long day. Getting late. President Scott. Okay, and now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposing the item, please say nay. Item passed.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 46, approving the appropriation of Rochester Urban Renewal Agency funds to reallocate the Bull's Head Plaza Sexually Transmitted Disease Clinic to new premises at 819, 827 West Main Street. We need to amend this item. So I need a motion to amend the amendment. And the amendment will be an amendment of $37,400 will cover the increase in project costs for the modification of the Bull's Head Clinic. So we need to vote on the amendment. So I need a motion and a second on the amendment.
Moved.
Moved by Councilmember Melendez, seconded by Vice President Light. And now we vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the amendment, please say nay. The amendment passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote amending introductory number 46 of 5-0 into the record.
And now we vote on introductory number 46 as amended. Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by President Lightfoot. Sorry, moved by President Scott. Seconded by, y'all got me stuck now. Seconded by Councilmember Melendez. And now we vote on the item as amended. All in favor of the item as amended, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The clerk will enter the affirmative.
Item,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
item passes.
Okay. The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record as amended.
Okay. And now we go to URA 2, resolution appropriating funds to reallocate the Bull's Head Plaza Sexually Transmitted Disease Clinic to new premises at 819, 827 West Main Street. We need to amend this item, and the amendment is to add $37,400, which will cover the increase in project cost for the modification of the Bull's Head Clinic. So we need to vote on the amendment. I need a motion and a second to amend the item. I need a motion and a second to amend the item. Moved by Councilmember Melendez, seconded by Vice President Lightfoot. And now we vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the amendment, please say nay. The amendment passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record on the amendment.
Okay, and now we vote on URA 2 as amended. I need a motion and a second.
Move it.
Moved by Council Vice President Lightfoot, seconded by,
Second.
okay, seconded by, I'm just gonna go with Councilmember Melendez, that way I don't make no mistake. Now we vote on the item as amended. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the item, please say nay. The item passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record as amended.
Okay, introductory number 47, authorizing agreements related to the U.S. Treasury Emergency Rent Assistance Funding. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question.
Okay, I knew somebody had a question. Councilmember Gruber.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer and the agenda review that in terms of the administration of this program, it's going to be, there was an RFP, I believe, if I recall, the applications are due tomorrow. So certainly you don't have a decision yet. What's going to be the kind of time lag between when you make a decision and when these dollars begin to be expensed?
So we're still working, we meet with the county and our community partners twice a week on this subject. We believe it'll be starting on or about March 15th. There's still a lot to do. We still have to have some interaction probably with the state. We still have to formulate what the process is after we receive all of the submissions to the RFP, which I think is up to date, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to do, but we're meeting twice a week, and our goal is to start and kick off this thing on March 15th.
Great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. It sounds like there's a whole lot more flexibility built in, which hopefully will really serve the people of Rochester well.
Yes, it will.
Thanks.
So Commissioner, it's in the transmittal, but if you could just talk briefly about the dollar amounts that are available for rental assistance between the city, the county, and the state of New York, given the most recent round of funding passed by the federal government?
Sure. So I just start with what has been. So the county had $4.3 million as part of the EPI 1.0 program. That's already been allocated, spent. The city had initially allocated $4.2 million as part of the CARES Act funding. That's both CDBG and ESG. That has not been spent down significantly yet because we prioritize the county funds in the EPI 1.0 program. We received $6 million in the Treasury funds. The county received $16 million, so we have 22 locally for the community. The state has an additional $800 million There might be some contingencies connected to that in terms of the state's goals and objectives to use a solo system that they want to manage and facilitate. So it remains to be seen what the access to those funds will be. We support the idea that we are prepared to hit the ground running on March 15th, that we need to be hitting the ground running on March 15th to serve people that are already in the process before the evictions and the courts open up. Right now, Catholic Family Center, who's the only game in town to provide assistance, has access to our CDBG funds to do so. It's about 500 applicants that had yet to be served in the first round of the program. So they're going through that population over the month of February, so we can kind of start with a clean slate, hopefully on March 15th.
Okay. Well, in that case, and so now at this time, we need a motion and a second on introductory number 47. So.
Move it.
Moved by Vice President Lightfoot, seconded by Councilmember Melendez, and now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 48, amending ordinances number 2020-96 and 2020-190 relating to the Pueblo Nuevo Phase 1 project. Questions, comments, concerns?
I will be abstaining from this.
Absolutely.
Move it.
None. Moved by Vice President Lightfoot, seconded by President Scott. I saw your light go on. Close enough. All right. And so now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0-1 into the record with Councilmember Melendez abstaining.
All right. Introductory number 49. Amending the Consolidated Community Development Plan 2019-20 Annual Action Plan, authorizing submittal of a plan and entering into grant or project sponsor agreements and appropriating $500,000 of additional funds in relation to the third round of Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Grants, public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Man, there was a lot to say.
Move it.
Thank you. Moved by Vice President Lightfoot, seconded by.
Councilmember Patterson, can I just say one thing?
Sure, Councilmember Gruber.
I appreciate the urgency of passing this, and you're certainly right that was a mouthful. But I'll tell you what's an even bigger mouthful is trying to read off all the list of the businesses that have been supported by this. I appreciate the administration providing that list. It is an incredible testament to the hard work of the team. I know that the Burke grant in particular was not easy to facilitate, but I just want to offer kudos because it's really been a major lifesaver for a lot of small businesses.
Appreciate that.
Chairman Patterson, I wanted to offer also a commendation for Commissioner Kirkmeyer and his staff. And I've been sort of plowing him with a number of questions lately. He responds quickly, thoroughly. I'm really, really impressed and really glad that we've got the support of a unit like that. We appreciate your great work.
They are amazing.
Thank you, President Scott. We appreciate that.
All right. So we got a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded by President Scott. All in favor, and now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the item, please say nay. Item passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
If there are no items that come before this committee, we now stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. I will call the Parks and Public Works Committee to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Evans. Councilmember Evans. See him. Councilmember Pio.
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
President Scott.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, introductory number 50, authorizing an agreement relating to the Port of Rochester Marina. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Were we able to, sorry, Councilman Pio. Were we able to look to see if we can add in a slip for the RFD boat down in Charlotte?
That's currently being assessed.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Move it.
Second.
And moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 51, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $2,400,000 bonds of said city to finance the city's 2021 water main lining and lead service replacement project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introduction number 52, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $600,000 bonds of said city to finance a portion of the city's 2021 cured in place pipe project of the distribution system water main renewal program. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 53, authorizing an agreement for the street lighting GIS development project. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Do you hear me?
I heard something.
I'm trying to.
Yes, Councilmember Lupien, I hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes. So this is, for GIS development, but I know we have other GIS systems. So is this like an app on an existing framework that we already have, or is this something completely new?
No, Councilperson Lupien, this is to basically map and chronicle and put into a GIS format all of the conduits, all of the streetlights, all of the systems that we purchased from RG&E for the streetlight system that we now own. It would be a major undertaking and probably will take us years for us to do it with our internal resources. This provides us with the information. So if someone would have to go in and do a stakeout to dig up something on a property, we have the most up-to-date important information for what's going on underground. And we've been really emphasizing making sure that we have up-to-date information on what's going on underground in our streets within our right-of-way. This is part of our effort to make sure that we have good information for our right-of-way.
And that information is get plugged into our current GIS system?
Yes, it will.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, looking at the project scope, I know that Bergman provided an hour breakdown of how many hours would be on the project, and like dividing into the amount of money we're giving them, it comes out to like $1,300 an hour. So I would imagine it's not just hourly work that we're getting, there's other factors being weighed.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you just can't go by an hourly standpoint. We keep close tabs on what they produce, and it's also not to exceed. And there may be certain other value added things with our GIS format that they will provide for us. It's of good value to us.
Absolutely, sounds like it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on 53? If not, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introduction number 54, a bond ordinance of the City of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $750,000 bonds of said city to finance the 2021 LED upgrades and pole replacement project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I do just want to say before we entertain a motion that this particular item triggered a question from President Scott and probably many other council members as well to ask for an update on where we are with the climate action plan. And I appreciate seeing that, Commissioner Jones. And I think there's a whole lot for us to be proud of. And hopefully the council members all get a chance to read that. I believe Conda sent it around to everyone. And if there are follow-up questions, I'll be sure to bring them to our next committee meeting, Commissioner Jones.
For the record, that update was for your eyes only. It wasn't really a report that I wanted to disseminate at this point in time, but it's good information, and there will be a more of a official update on what's going on. But it was just basically letting you know where we're at, what we're doing, and how we're meeting so many different benchmarks and goals that has been established. For example, the Department of Energy basically designated that we met and exceeded our Better Building Challenge goal by a year and by over 10%. We are being certified as a smart city or and what's the terminology that we were certified back in 2018?
We're both a NYSERDA clean energy community and a New York State DEC climate smart community.
Okay, yes, climate smart. And of course, we are also, Louis, I won't leave you out. We were nominated as a smart city also. So there's so many different things that we're doing in regards to taking advantage of technology, being smart about our approaches, and really taking hold of our sustainability and doing the right things from a green standpoint.
That's right, including starting to switch out lights with LED, which is what, for anyone who's watching on YouTube, that is what we're doing here. We're going to see a lot of that in the Southwest neighborhood and eventually expand it to other quadrants of the city. So it's a great thing, and we'll have a more formal report to share to the public at some point. But for now, it's just for council members to see, Commissioner Jones. Do I have any questions, comments, or concerns on 54? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introduction number 55, a bond ordinance of the city of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $125,000 bonds of said city to finance the underpass lighting upgrades project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Just a note, Councilperson Gruber, these underpasses also will be utilizing LED technology and changing the actual light rendition at these underpasses.
I would expect nothing less. Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introduction number 56, amending the official map by abandoning a portion of the Trowbridge Street right-of-way. A public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introduction number 57, authorizing a license agreement with Wren Square LLC. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Follow-up question.
Go ahead.
So in the answers that we got back, it said that there was something in the policy that prevented free access to private companies in the right of way. And I was just wondering if you can explain the details of that, just for my own edification.
Could you repeat what you said, because you're
Yes.
talking it out?
Sorry. In the questions and answers, it was stated that there's something in the policy that prevents free access to private companies in the right of way.
Well, Councilperson Lupien, anytime someone makes a penetration in the right of way, it causes us to go out there to inspect it.
Mhm.
It causes us to make sure that they're doing the right thing within our right of way. and they're not putting things in the right of way haphazardly. There's a cost associated with it, and the fees basically are supporting the cost of us doing the inspection. Right now, we are dealing with situations that are in the right of way that were done without anyone doing inspection back in the 50s. And we have a water main break that has a RG&E duct bank on top of a Rochester duct bank on top of an RDH duct bank on top of our water main. Now, what we have to do now to repair that water main is dig around 4 different conduits or 4 different pieces of hardware or structures within that right of way. Without us being able to dictate what's in our right of way, how it's being placed in the right of way, we can't fix the critical infrastructure that we have within the right of way. Things that go on top of the ground, it's important. But what goes on underground is even more important, because that's the lifeblood of our infrastructure for sewers, electric, gas, and everything. So what we're saying is that we have to have inspectors who support everything in that right of way, and these fees support those inspectors.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. So let's see, we're going to take a motion on introductory number 57.
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 58, authorizing funding and an agreement for the Joseph A. Floriano Rochester Riverside Convention Center South Terrace and addition. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I would just disclose that I will have to abstain from conversation in a vote, as I am a member of the board.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans.
I do have a question. I'm sorry, Councilman Gruber.
By all means, Councilmember Pio, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just realizing that this is going to bring more people out to the river, which is fantastic. Do we have the capabilities for our firemen our fire people to get to that location quickly if something were to unfortunately happen and someone falls over into the water?
Absolutely. It's not going to change river rescue. What this project does is to reinforce a wall that was built over 100 years ago that's basically failing. And if we do not replace that wall, we will have a potential of a catastrophic situation occurring. And while we repair that wall, we're using the opportunity to expand and cantilever over to basically make the convention center more viable with providing them with more exhibit space.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. Just want to make sure the people are safe. We can get our firemen out there.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate that. So let's take a motion on 58, please.
Move it.
It's been moved. President Scott, Vice President Lightfoot.
Second.
Second, sir.
Thank you. It's been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes with 1 abstention.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 401 into the record with Councilmember Evans abstaining.
Thank you. Introductory number 59, amending ordinance number 2020-328 relating to the State Street Reconstruction Project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Now we're going to take 3 items out of committee that were held last month. 3 very exciting items, all about changing some of the elements of our road to make sure that that pedestrians are as safe as possible. We're going to start with introductory number 17, authorizing geometric changes relating to the City of Rochester Pedestrian Safety Action Plan Phase 3 project, a public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introduction number 18, authorizing geometric changes relating to the New York State Department of Transportation Pedestrian Safety Action Plan Phase 2 project. A public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
And finally, introduction number 19, authorizing geometric changes relating to the Priority Bicycle Boulevard Implementation Project. A public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the February 11th, 2021 committee meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you very much. That concludes the very important work of the Parks and Public Works Committee. A lot of good stuff on the agenda this month. And with that, we're adjourned.
All righty. At this time, the Public Safety, Recreation, Human Service Committee, we call it to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Vice President Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Pio,
Here.
President Scott.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, introductory number 60, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement for the Rochester Monroe County Youth Bureau. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved.
Second.
In second, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 61, authorizing agreements for 2020 Justice Assistance Grants Program. Any questions, comments, and/or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Councilperson Lupien. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask,
Well, I could hear you for a second, and then you went out on me. Try it again.
how did this grant come to the city?
How did the grant come to the city is the question on the floor.
So Councilmember Lupien, this grant was formally presented by RPD. It was a grant that was a part of the transference to the Department of Recreation and Human Services as a part of the Victims Assistance transition. And the grant has been in existence for the last 10 years as a joint operation between the county and the city. There is, as I understand it, there has to be one application from a general geographic area. So this has been a partnership in doing that. So the portion that the city receives has been used to fund victims assistance, staffing and positions. The rest of the funding has been transitioned and it is sub-granted to Monroe County.
Thank you, Dr. Commissioner Torres. Councilperson Lupien, does that suffice your question? All right, awesome. Any other questions, comments, or concerns or introductory number 61? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Move it. Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 62, authorizing an agreement and a budget amendment for the Youth Voice One Vision. Any questions, comments, or concerns? First of all, those young people are doing a wonderful job. Tremaine over there is doing an excellent job. I just want to commend them for those young people, even though through the pandemic, they have still remained to be very engaged, even virtually, and they're working very hard, and they have a tremendous vision for 2021. So I just want to commend those young folks for the great work that they're doing. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory 63, authorizing an agreement related to the Comprehensive Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Program. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Vice President Lightfoot.
Yes.
The agreement here for 63, it says Rochester Community TV. It's for the Comprehensive Adolescent Pregnancy Program. I'm just asking a question, just for clarity.
I'm looking at my screen. It says introductory number 63 is authorizing an agreement related to the Comprehensive Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Program. And that stops right there.
Okay, thank you.
Supposed to be more?
No.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Introductory 63 passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory 64, authorizing home-to-home program agreement for Rochester Animal Services. Any questions, comments? I know we have Director Fitzgerald on the line, sir. I know you're doing some great work with our animals and programs and things of that nature. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 65, authorizing an agreement and a budget amendments related to the employment of foster care and transfer coordinator and community outreach specialist by the Rochester Animal Services. I know Mr. Fitzgerald has to be excited about getting some more help. So we commend you for that, sir. And we hope you get many more in the future. Any questions? I got you. Comments or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's
Second.
been moved. It's been second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory number 66, authorizing the mandatory agreement for Rachel Ray Save Them All grant from Best Friends Animal Society. Any questions, comments, and or concerns? May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 67, authorizing an amendatory agreement for a complex coordinator terrorist attack grant. Any questions, comments, and or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Got one. Any abstentions? Motion passes with one nay.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-1 into the record with Councilmember Gruber voting no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have a question from Councilperson Lupien.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I've got two questions. And this is probably directed at Chief Harriet and Corporation Counsel. So The first is that, council was alerted that the Police Accountability Board hasn't gotten all the documents that they need to do the Harris Street investigation. I just wondered if you could provide an update.
I know from our perspective that we provided all the documents that were on a list that we were given. Chief Harriet Sullivan provided a couple hundred pages of documents and incident reports, quite a bit of information. And that was provided over last weekend.
I think maybe there were some questions that didn't get answered and some, I think they requested some emails. So I don't know if all that that's been settled since we received that notification from them.
They provided some interrogatories, which we declined to answer.
I'm sorry, can you say more what that means?
They submitted a list of written questions and asked the chief to answer questions relative to incidents, practices, policies directly related to the lawsuits that are pending against the city. And our advice to the chief is not to create writings. We would provide any records that exist. And she did that with the hundreds of pages she provided them. But we advised her not to create anything new, not to write any summaries of incidences that she may or may not have been familiar with, because obviously she didn't even work here at the time of the protests. And there's 105 lawsuits pending relative to the topics requested. Now, I guess there's two, you're asking two questions. This was more the Wilkins Street incident.
Yeah, I'm
that
not,
was
I'm
the
not
same
asking
thing,
about
yeah.
the protest.
Okay, so that was the same thing. She submitted a list of interrogatories for that as well. And we advised her not to create documents that didn't already exist. We turned over all the documents that did exist, and we advised her not to create new documents.
Okay. I know the mayor has called for, this investigation to happen, and now the governor has weighed in. And so I hope that that they have what they need to do the investigation, because obviously it's very important to everyone.
Well, they have everything that we have. We turned over every single piece of paper in the file. I think what we're talking about is our advice to her not to create new documents which summarize the event, which we don't think is appropriate given what's the pending litigation. But every piece of paper that was in the chief's file has been turned over to the BAB.
Okay, thank you. Second question is the records released today. Awesome that the city's being proactive in releasing, records that were previously withheld because of the 50A civil service law. And you and I had an email conversation today, and then just kind of getting more clarity around the types of records that are able to be released. Because I think, you say disciplinary records, but I'm looking at personnel records, and I'm just wondering the difference.
Well, the difference is that if the personnel records don't end up in a disciplinary hearing, they wouldn't be posted on the city's database. They would be subject to a FOIL demand, but in terms of what we voluntarily posted, we only posted information relative to actual disciplinary events. So if for instance, a complaint was filed and the chief did not file charges as a result of the complaint, that wouldn't be voluntarily posted on the city's website because it did not result in actual discipline. Only the events of discipline that we encountered were voluntarily posted on the website.
Got it, but they're still available to be foiled.
The personnel records, I think you talked, yes, they're still available to be foiled, specifically officer by officer.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right.
Vice President Lightfoot, I've got a question along those lines too. Going back to Councilmember Lupien's first question about the information going to the PAB, and Councilor Curtin, you said they asked for interrogatories. Tell me exactly what an interrogatory is.
An interrogatory is usually in the pendency of a lawsuit where the plaintiff, either the plaintiff or the defendant, submits written questions and wants written answers to various questions they may have that may or may not be part of the evidence trail. So once a lawsuit is filed, both parties in the discovery process have the right to ask questions. What was the weather like that day? How fast was the car going? Things that maybe they couldn't figure out through the evidence, they can ask questions. And you may or may not know the answer to the questions because sometimes they're hypothetical, sometimes the information is just not known. So in a situation like this, where they're asking written questions, our advice to them was not to create a record, not to expand the evidence. The evidence speaks for itself, and we submitted all the information that's available, all the evidence is available. So I didn't want somebody without the advice of counsel to interpret that evidence, and then ultimately that would be used against us in a civil trial, because obviously the PAB at this point, there's no monetary consequences to their actions, but with all the lawsuits pending against the city, there are real consequences to self-incrimination, basically. Not in a criminal sense, but in a civil sense. So our advice to her was not to create a record, turn over every piece of paper that she has, but don't write new things that don't exist, that you're not obligated by law to create.
So it's not as much about it being written as it is about it being a part of an existing lawsuit?
My concern is the city liability under the existing lawsuit. Creating, putting something in writing that doesn't exist today, there's just no purpose to put it in writing. So why create a record that could be used against us? The evidence is the evidence.
If there were not a lawsuit in the works, and the question, they were asking for information in writing.
If there were no lawsuit possible based on the statute of limitations, based on something, then it's just whether you're going to put in the time and effort to answer, not hypothetical questions, but to answer questions that you probably already know through the evidence. I mean, one of the things of these interrogatories, there's nothing new that you could learn because the evidence pretty much sets out everything. There's affidavits from, I think, 12 or 15 different officers. I'm not sure what more the chief of police could answer since she wasn't on the scene. We have sworn written statements from every officer that was on the scene, and obviously the body-worn camera footage also.
Okay.
So,
all right. I think we're going to need to tussle with that a bit more. I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
So
but
maybe
I think,
Madam Mayor.
Council President, maybe I can add a little bit more clarification.
mhm.
What the Corporation Council is saying is that we got a list from the PAB asking for all of the documentation, all of the records, all of the video from the event. And that is what, and the agreement with the PAB is that we turn that over within 5 days of receiving the request. I believe we met most of the deadline. Everything is over, all the documentation, all the records, all the reports, everything is with the PAB for them to review and to start their investigation. What they are asking for is for the chief to answer specific questions about that particular day that she was there to provide those answers, but the documentation that they have would tell them that. So for example, what street they were on, what the weather was, the documentation, the video already explains all that. And so to have the chief go through this process of providing this written sort of testimony statement that all of the documentation that we've turned over would provide to them is something, you're creating a document that doesn't exist outside of the chain of custody or outside of the regular course of. And so that is what the Corporation Council is saying, is that we want to turn over all the documentation that has to do with the regular course of duty. And if the PAB wants to call the chief in and question her on what they review and on those documents, they can. But to have her write a written report of information that she is getting secondhand that is not something that that the Corporation Council is saying that he wants to create that document.
So it's less about the creation of the document. I think with the rules regarding FOIL, you don't have to create a document that doesn't exist. You can basically provide what's there, and it probably has a lot to do with just workload and all of that stuff. So it's a different set of circumstances is what I'm getting. It's not about the work involved in putting together a written document, but rather about exposure by providing information that you don't have firsthand knowledge of.
Correct. And you're creating something that doesn't exist, right? So you're creating a document that doesn't exist as normal police work and could be utilized as something else, if, in another situation. So for the police reports, for all the documents that need to be turned over, all of those in the normal course of work have been turned over, as well as all the records that have been requested. There has been nothing that that the city, that the administration of the police department has held back, but to create something that doesn't exist as part of an investigation or ongoing investigation with either the PAB, the law department, it is not. That's what the Corporation Council is talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Lupien, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the email that came over that kind of is the chain from the PAB and Corporation Council.
Mhm.
There's two items. All orders, manuals, training bulletins, and written directives regarding how RPD officers treat children and treat mentally ill people or people dealing with mental health crises. And what was sent over is general orders. So I'm wondering, training bulletins and things like that aren't typically part of general orders, correct? And so are there other things that, they're saying that they didn't get that exist that can be sent over regarding those two items?
I'm not certain because I didn't do the research. I can check with the chief. We characterize them as general orders. I believe that she responded and to the best of her ability, but we can ask again if there's a level going down of something, but I really think she responded as best as she could.
Madam Mayor,
and a lot of that information is also available on the open data portal already. So
the training
orders, I'm sorry?
The training bulletins?
All of that information, I believe, is on the open data portal. And so she can go back and look and see if there's something that she overlooked, but our intent was to make sure that we gave all the information that they were looking for, and she gave them what she believed was what they were looking for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, that's can lead to a much more robust conversation. I will take the opportunity, since we're in public safety, recreation, and human services, to tell our citizens out there and viewers and those who will be listening to this later on, we implore you to look at the Executive Order 203. You go to www.cityofrochester/ Executive Order 203. We want extensive community input and comment on this executive order. This is the time where we're trying to get it right. We commend the mayor and the working group, also Councilmember Melendez, who sat on that working group, as well as all the others, UCLM, PAB, Race Commission Representative, etc. But please, ladies and gentlemen, go and look at that executive order. Give your feedback. There's a way to give your feedback. There's several ways to give your feedback. If you can go to that website and get that information. Contact the mayor's constituent services if you don't have access to the internet, so they can get you a way that you can give your feedback. But we want as much feedback as possible to the Executive Order 203. I believe a lot of the things that we're talking about can be enhanced with Executive 203, especially around data. And so we want to draw your attention to that. If there's no other further business to come before the Public Safety and Human Service Department Committee, we are adjourned.
The public Hearings will commence momentarily. Are we using the same link, Conda?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Then we can begin that public hearing meeting.
Would you like me to call the roll now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Councilmember Evans,
Present.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lupian,
Here.
Councilmember Melendez,
Here.
Councilmember Patterson,
I'm here.
Councilmember Pio,
Here.
Vice President Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
President Scott.
Present. We will
Thank
begin
you.
the public hearings.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing geometric changes relating to the City of Rochester Pedestrian Safety Action Plan Phase 3 project, introductory number 17. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers. That hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing geometric changes relating to the New York State Department of Transportation Pedestrian Safety Action Plan Phase 2 project, introductory number 18. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers. That hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing geometric changes relating to the Priority Bicycle Boulevard Implementation Project, introductory number 19. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
If there are no speakers, that hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the zoning map by changing the zoning classification of 84 and 86 South Union Street. Introductory number 44. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers. That hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the zoning code text in relation to conformity with the comprehensive plan. Introductory number 45. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers. That hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the Consolidated Community Development Plan 2019-20 Annual Action Plan, authorizing submittal of a plan and entering into grant or project sponsor agreements, and appropriating $500,000 of additional funds in relation to the third round of Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Grants. Introductory number 49. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
We have a comment from Silvano Orsi, Little Italy Association of Rochester, Inc. The City of Rochester administration has gone ahead and deliberately excluded me from the planning of the Lyle neighborhood that I founded, the Little Italy Historic District on Lyle Avenue. My first comment at this time regarding CDBG funds is that zero has been allocated to the revitalization of the troubled Lyle Avenue corridor area, and that those funds need to be utilized to revitalize the Lyle area as well as its Little Italy historic district after decades of deliberate neglect. The city administration should be communicating with us as area neighborhood leaders as to how those funds will be used, collaboratively instead of trying to exclude people who are actually helping get this blighted neighborhood back off the ground. It seems that some are content seeing the neighborhood stay at rock bottom, which primarily harms Black and Brown people who live there. Let me know if you need more commentary for the CDBG funds to be properly allocated to the Lyle Avenue commercial corridor, where 1 in every 2 children lives below the poverty line and where drugs, prostitution, and gun violence runs rampant. Please let us know how much CDBG funding has been allocated to the Lyle corridor and how we may access it for area improvement projects. We have streetscape beautification projects pending, and the area is a total food desert. We need to bring a farmer's market to the area and bring area residents access to fresh food. It's a matter of humanity. We also need to properly address public safety in the area. 5 people were shot in one night in the Lyle corridor last week. Looking forward to hearing from you. Many thanks, Sil. There is an additional comment from Suzanne Dianetti, Warrior Salute Veterans Services. Thank you. This is good news for so many. The end of those comments.
If there are no additional speakers, that hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, a public hearing will now be had on the following matter: amending the official map by abandoning a portion of the Trowbridge Street right-of-way, introductory number 56. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
There are no speakers. That hearing is closed. That concludes the business for this public hearing. These items will be considered at the next council meeting, which will be Tuesday, February
16th?
15th, is that right?
16th.
You all know when it is. Yes, they'll be considered on Tuesday at the council meeting. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a pleasant evening. We are adjourned.